I run because it has become increasingly evident that unless some new alternative, some new initiative, some new approach is injected into the political life of our community, we are destined to lose here at home the very prize we seek to defend abroad, the politics of participation. My campaign
right from the start, Jerry's campaign took off.
The future of Cincinnati will be shaped.
Jerry completed his 6-month tour of duty and returned home in time to finish his primary race.
Coming up next on JTV, All Jerry, 24 hours a day, is the entertaining early career interview.
I think it'd still be the same. Highly visible, argumentative. I'm sure it'd be irritating to a lot of people as it was in the past, but certainly not softening a position. Not, I'm not going to get a crew cut and start wearing a jacket and tie every place.
Even spending the night in jail to push for prisoners' rights.
And they have a bucket there. They have to go to the bathroom. And they have straw mattresses.
No, the idea is we're going to spend a couple of months each week going into a different department of the city and just working as the city employees do. And the idea is just to get to know every facet of what the city does, the actual services. Sometimes if you're just sitting at City Hall, all you do is read budgets and you read descriptions, but I guess until you've been out on the street and actually working, you really don't get a feel for it.
It seemed Jerry Springer had it all. Newly married, exceedingly popular, he was destined for a bright political future. But his good fortune didn't last. In April 1974, everything came crashing down around him. Jerry was about to be exposed as a customer of prostitutes in nearby Kentucky. Vice cops cracking down on the prostitution ring had come across personal checks Jerry had written for the women's services. The popular young councilman was stunned. His secret was sure to be revealed. Jerry faced a difficult decision.
Then came public humiliation. Police raided a Kentucky bordello and found the newlywed Springer had paid a prostitute with a check.
These actions have weighed heavily on my conscience, and early last week, I contacted the FBI and voluntarily answered all inquiries of what I had done and of what I had knowledge. It is my fondest wish to re-enter public life, but I believe it in the best interest of this community that I resign until such time that the air has been cleared.
Then, in 1977, at the age of 33, he was elected mayor of Cincinnati. This is how Jerry saw his future then.
I grew up a bit. I mean, everybody matures. That's a function of living. And I feel now that there's been acceptance, fairly widespread acceptance of me as a person. Where do I go? I love what I'm doing. I mean, I love being in politics. And that's the only thing I'm sure of, that I want to stay in that. I mean, I don't chart out my life saying in 1980 I'll be here, in 1984. I mean, I learned that you don't do that. So all I can say is that I'm going to stay active in politics and now concentrate on hopefully being a very good mayor. There are people really in need. As soon as we can get the food, we're going to get it out to these people.
Springer was once a Cincinnati councilman, a city that elected then Gerald Springer mayor back in 1977.
Jerry has had 9 lives, just like a cat. He has been an attorney, a civil rights activist.
Jerry was also a 2-term mayor in Cincinnati.
Thank you for letting the son of refugees of Nazi Germany make it in America.
Jerry was definitely a maverick politician and a bit of a showman. One time he wrestled a bear at the convention center during a show.
We were trying to raise money for the 1980 Olympics. And every minute we could stay in the ring, we would raise several $1,000s. Second round, I tapped the bear on the nose. Boom!
Watch out, you got it!
I never saw it coming.
Well, listen, Jerry, there's nothing to it, man. You just get out there. No, really, the show's called Rock Around the Block. It's local bands from Cincinnati every week. Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. It's on CET, TV 48, and WEBN. You'll knock 'em dead. Do it, baby.
Live from Cincinnati, it's Rock
37-year-old Jerry Springer is running for governor. Trouble is, few people outside of Cincinnati have ever heard of him.
Hi, I'm Jerry Springer, and I want to be your governor. That's pretty nervy coming from someone you don't even know.
In a bold and unexpected move, Springer and his campaign organizers broke the traditional barriers and started running these TV spots in the Cleveland area to gain recognition before other candidates with well-known names could get their campaigns off the ground. The breaking tradition is hardly new to Jerry Springer. He does it 3 times a week with commentaries on Cincinnati's leading rock and roll radio station.
I'm Jerry Springer with an alternative plan for paying for mass transit. How about slot machines on all the buses? Think of the crowds our buses will attract.
Jerry Springer was born in England shortly after his parents escaped the Nazi concentration camps. They moved to the Bronx when he was 5. And after law school in Chicago, he ended up in the Queen City, a liberal Democrat in a bastion of conservatism. Springer prospered as a city councilman and was on the verge of becoming that city's youngest mayor when he broke tradition again.
I spent a night with a woman I shouldn't have. This was back in 1974, and I resigned at that time and told the people what I had done. And then I decided to run again in 1975. And I was re-elected, being the top vote getter. 77, re-elected again, became the mayor.
The voters can't seem to resist a guy who wrestles bears and enjoys the disco scene. And that ability to win people over has begun to make political observers take his campaign seriously. His TV spots have more than paid for themselves in the Cleveland area. He already has substantial backing from several semi-prominent Clevelanders, and his weekly visits here are reaping benefits. But Springer still has a long way to go to win the Democratic nomination, with well-known names like Celeste, Brown, and Celebrezzi providing competition.
It isn't going to matter anymore who ran last time. People are going to want someone who really understands how to run, a very major business in the state of, which is the state of Ohio, and to make it work. And I think the record in Cincinnati has been very positive. We are one of the major American cities that's making it.
Hi, I'm Jerry Springer, Democratic candidate for governor.
By 1981, Jerry Springer had served Cincinnati as a popular council member and mayor for almost a decade. His future appeared bright, and his driving ambition remained strong. And so, that December, he resigned from city government to make a run in the Democratic primary for governor.
I'm up at 5:30, and I'm never back in the hotel till midnight or 1. So I'm living on 4.5 hours sleep every day, and you're always on.
Jerry crisscrossed Ohio, hoping his magic would strike again. As Election Day grew nearer, it became clear it would not. So, in a move that made headlines around the country, Jerry and Mike Ford put together a commercial they hoped would make the difference, revealing Jerry's old prostitution scandal.
I'm Jerry Springer, and I want to be your governor. Now, after sharing some specific solutions for our unemployment and education problems in this state, it looks like the nomination is finally within grasp, which makes what I'm about to tell you even more difficult. Some 9 years ago, I spent time with a woman I shouldn't have, and I paid her with a check. I wish I hadn't done that, and the truth is, I wish no one would ever know. But in the rough world of politics, opponents are not about to let personal embarrassments lay to rest. Perhaps like you, I'm not sure what any of this has to do with being governor, but maybe my talking to you about this makes a point. Ohio is in a world of hurt. The next governor is going to have to take some heavy risks and face some hard truths. I'm prepared to do that. This commercial should be proof. I'm not afraid, even of the truth, and even if it hurts. Come on, join me on June 8th. We're going to turn the state around.
Jerry Springer, Democrat for governor.
But the commercial didn't work. Jerry placed third in the primary. Late that summer, he announced he was retiring from politics. Only his closest friends and supporters understood the reason this political junkie chose to retire.
The plane was 31,000 feet in the air when it caught fire. The pilot made a perfect landing.
I'm Jerry Springer. The world changed, so we shouldn't be surprised that our colleges did too. We'll talk about it.
The president of the local Teamsters Union in Cincinnati in northern Kentucky is warning trucking companies to send trucks out in convoys after midnight on Monday. The president of the local... He doesn't seem to...
Just 2 years after his debut, Jerry was named co-anchor of the news, but not before WLWT put him through some serious training.
Now they had to send him to anchor school.
To City Hall. And from newsman to television star.
I white-knuckled for about a year with him, hoping that he could finish out the sentence before the teleprompter went down.
Over the next 10 years, progress in the case of Bunsen versus the Board of Education.
hold up something white for me, Jerry?
Something white.
I can't hear anything.
Well, you've seen them advertised in newspaper inserts and on television sets. No, not television sets. You've seen them advertised in these newspaper inserts and on television. Hi. I am not God, nor am I a theologian.
That's pretty good for my
And he had to have somebody in the back of the alley knocking down all those pins.
Well, we're going to work on our bowling this weekend, and you have a very nice vacation.
He's not here, of course, to celebrate his 50th birthday. He wouldn't have been if no one had the chance to see that. Our defiance, our youth, our naivety, and our vulnerability. What we remember most about Elvis is not the fact that he died, but we are reminded about the fact of when he was young and when he was young. Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer. The sale of Home State is on shaky grounds. Chemical Bank says the $91 million proposed state contribution just isn't enough. We'll have a full report. Also, it seems as if everyone has a point of view on the Commissioner of Baseball's suggestion that drug testing be for all the players as well as the owners. We'll have a report on that. And Dave Robinson takes a look at Cincinnati softball and Norma Cincinnati Vice. We'll have all the news tonight at 11. Please join us.
All right. Promo City. Hello. A lot of things have been happening lately here on News 5. Like Norma Rashid. She's been happening. We'll have an exclusive profile of the men and women battling vice in Cincinnati. I battled vice last night. I battled it all the way, and I finally gave in. I lost. Vice got the better of me. There was this woman, and there were these whips. Oof. Oof, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Perspiration upon the brow.
We better get started. He's getting too excited. You ready, Jerry?
Okay.
He's ready.
Things have been happening on News 5 lately, like Norma Rashid's exclusive profile of the men and women battling vice in Cincinnati. Or when Noel Morgan alerted us to the potential dangers involved with nearly 2 million Chrysler cars. Or when Johnny Bench invited us to participate.
Do it again. Take a little bit of extra time, just a smooch.
A smooch more? A smidgen? A smooch or a smidgen?
RCH. Calvin said that's about the size of it.
Oh, and such an asshole. 3, 2, 1. Or when Johnny Bench invited us to participate in the June benefit performance of Damn Yankees. News 5. People make the difference.
You gotta have fun. That's it.
Let's see it.
Jerry, would you like to say anything else before we take you off the air?
I want to say this to them. Richard Hall. There's
the ghost of Fat Barry Sass.
That was it, number 4,192, and now Pete Rose of Cincinnati, Ohio, is the all-time hit leader in all of baseball. Good evening. He worked and sweated for 23 years for this moment, and tonight in front of his family, his friends, and 50,000 unabashed Pete Rose fans, he did it. He became the man who broke the unbreakable record. 57 years to the day after Ty Cobb set the all-time hit record, Pete Rose got number 4,192, as he called it, the big knock. Pete basked in the adoration of his teammates and his fans, and deservedly so. Thousands of flashbulbs were going, each person recording a scene that will be hard to forget. The emotion of the moment was even too much for the usually stoic Rose. The applause would continue for minutes, and later a hug from the second generation of Pete Roses.
Boy, this is his game. It's his town, and it is.
Immediately after the game tonight, a winning effort by the Reds, I might add, a ceremony was held, one especially for Pete Rose. Reds owner Mart Schott presented him with a silver service with 24 cups, each one inscribed with one of the 24 records Pete holds in Major League Baseball. Then Pete was able to describe his own feelings.
Now, later during the ceremony, when asked if he'd play next year, he answered, "The way I feel tonight, I'd say yes." Norma, obviously a very happy man.
We hope he will play.
Michael Collins, News 5 Tonight.
Thanks, Mike. Now, thanks to that sharp single tonight, Cincinnati's 2nd Street will pass into history tomorrow. At a morning ceremony, 2nd Street will officially become Pete Rose Way. It's Mayor Charlie Lucan showing off the new signs.
Now we're not through with a special coverage of Pete's Day. Of course, still to come is the rest of the Reds game, highlights from our own Steve Fiziak.
And we'll show you how those who weren't lucky enough to have a ticket to Riverfront found out about the record. Stay with us. The fate of some area schools decided, details at 11. Harold Mills gets the scoop tonight at 11.
This is an update from News 5.
Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer.
And I'm Norma Rashid. President Reagan used his State of the Union address tonight to talk about the federal budget and an overhaul of the nation's welfare system. The president also pledged that shuttle flights and plans to build a space station will go on. We'll have a full report on News 5 tonight at 11.
Also tonight, we'll have more on the investigation of what caused the explosion of the Challenger. Also, we'll tell you what the Ohio Legislative Committee investigating the collapse of Homestate has recommended to prevent another collapse. And you'll see how area school levies fared in voting around the area.
And our reporter for a day was Cincinnati Mayor Charlie Lucan. You'll see his report on sports medicine, as well as Michael Collins' report on how the day went. All on News 5 tonight at 11.
Please join us.
This is an update from News 5.
Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer.
And I'm Norma Rashid. President Reagan is getting ready to unveil the new federal budget, one that comes in just shy of $1 trillion. Look for big cuts in domestic programs.
Also back here in Cincinnati, council has picked a new manager, one who just happened to grow up here.
And former head of the Vice Squad, Lieutenant Harold Mills, tries his hand at working on this side of the camera. He's our reporter for a day.
We'll have all the news tonight at 11. Please join us. Good evening. Grim reminders of last week's shuttle tragedy. Collins decided recently that he didn't like his old trench coat anymore, that he needed a new one. But the thought of just throwing away the coat bothered him. After all, it's more than a trench coat. It's a reporter's best friend. It's remarkable.
Do you believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's breaking me up.
It's sad. A trench coat will be the perfect weekend weather.
3, 2,
Despite his rough times, WLWT became the #1 news program in Cincinnati.
Because I was doing the news, I couldn't very well be dancing with the Chippendales in the afternoon if I was going to be doing serious news at night.
Anything that he did in his life, he always gave it 100%, so he was pretty successful at it.
Hopes, empty tanks, and a willingness to wait. And wait they did in the latest edition of the great radio station Gasoline Wars. News 5's Jeff Hirsch visited the front lines.
Jeff Hirsch, News 5.
Well, I hope that lady wasn't trying to get lottery tickets today, too.
No, she's had a bad day. Runs out of gas, poor battery. Well, the weather didn't have a good day either, did it?
Well, no, not really.
Everything I am today, I owe to this, the green stuff.
I can't believe you're breaking up like this.
Yeah, well, this is the funniest story I've ever covered.
I care about people. I care about people who watch television. I care about people who watch Channel 5. I need this job. I can't afford to be unemployed.
But that's not all. Your family will delight at Jerry's rendition of White Christmas.
Christmas, with every Christmas card I write, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
But wait, there's more. You'll hear Jerry as you've never heard him before.
I could sing like Moshe Dayan. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones you used to know. where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I could tell you stories, you wouldn't believe it.
Yes.
By the way. Okay, a new tape for a new news director. Oh. I think you're much better than Tom Kelbs.
Now, a lot of people around here, when they heard you were coming, said, no way.
Yeah, a lot of
but
people
I
did.
stuck up for you.
I said.
I stuck up for you.
I want Cliff.
Yeah. And Norma called in from Hilton Head or wherever she is and said she didn't like the idea, but I do.
Yeah, Norma didn't want a new news director.
I did.
No. Norma says, let's not get anybody from New York.
That's right.
But I said, I want changes.
I like him. I like him already.
This is an update from News 5.
Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer.
And I'm Norma Rashid. Could more trouble be on the way for Riverfest? Covington is thinking of not participating in the annual event. Tonight on News 5, we'll have more on the problems that could make Riverfest fizzle.
And the man believed to have taken control of millions of TV sets a few months ago was captured today. The FCC says they arrested a suspect they think could be Captain Midnight.
We'll have all the details tonight at 11.
Please join us.
This is an update from News 5.
Good evening, I'm Norma Rashid.
And I'm Jerry Springer. Is the local animal shelter treating man's best friend like a dog? Well, tonight on News 5, we'll look into accusations that a shelter in Indiana is mistreating their animals.
We'll also have the latest on Dick Hauser, the manager of the Kansas City Royals. He underwent surgery to remove a brain tumor today.
We'll have all the news, sports, and weather tonight at 11.
Please join us.
An attendance record was set at Riverbend tonight. It broke the record that was set last night by the same artist, Detroit rock and roller Bob Seger. And as Michael Collins reports, it's what Seger doesn't do as much as what he does that's kept him on top. Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer.
And I'm Norma Rashid. Coming up next on News 5 at 5:30, the sounds of warning sirens can soon be heard in the community surrounding the Frenol plant. We'll explain their purpose. Also, the friendly skies are again a war zone as another airfares war heats up, one you could win.
Plus, we'll show you how the state of Ohio is trying to make buying a home easier. We'll have these stories, sports, and the weekend forecast, all coming your way next on News 5 at 5:30. Please join us.
Take two, Jerry's Mike. Ready, roll 16. Roll 16, ready, 16, voice over natural. Take,
Since Saturday,
ready,
police have been digging through the Rumpke landfill in hopes of finding her body.
Clear, next
Followed
coming
a
to
statement
one
by
on
the man
Jerry
accused
Full.
of murdering her, 24-year-old John Fryman. He reportedly told police he put the body into a dumpster after cutting
Ready,
off
camera
the
one
woman's
on Jerry.
legs.
Ready to roll 15.
Police tonight tell us they probably won't search again tomorrow.
Take one, ready to roll.
The search for
roll
a verdict
15,
in
ready,
the
15,
Homestead case
voiceover.
will continue tomorrow.
Take, ready,
Today,
Matt,
attorneys
Matt,
and reporters
coming back
waited
to
in the
camera
courtroom
one.
while the jury deliberated.
Clear, ready,
Those
one.
deliberations began Friday afternoon.
Take one.
Former Homestead
Next, we're going to
leaders
3 on
Marvin Waller,
Clyde.
Burton
Ready,
Bongard,
camera
and
3,
David
ready to roll
Schiebel are charged
16.
with criminally misapplying the bank's money, which
Ready,
led to the
3.
Homestead collapse in 1985.
Take 3. Dissolve 1, Q Jerry. Ready, roll
Cincinnati
15.
police
Roll
are
15. Ready,
investigating the
15,
deaths of
voice over
3 people
natural.
Tonight in Clifton.
Take.
The bodies of
Clifton,
2 males
ready to
and a
Matt.
female were found shot to death in an apartment at 544 Dick Smith Avenue.
Clear,
No other
ready,
details
camera
are
2 on
available at
Clyde.
this time, nor any names released.
Take Jerry's mic.
In Washington today, the United
Next,
States
we're going to
Supreme
one on
Court
Jerry
ruled
Full.
in favor of seatbelt legislation. The High Court found that the state of Illinois could require drivers to wear them.
Ready, Q him to
It also
1. Ready,
said that
camera
people
1.
who don't could be fined if they are caught traveling without
Q,
it.
take 1. Ready, roll
Some
15.
wayward travelers from
Roll
the Soviet
15. Ready,
Union
15,
found their way
voice over
back home
natural.
today.
Take.
About 50
One is a
Russians
2-shot
who had
tease. Next, we're
emigrated
coming
to
to
the
3 on
United
Clyde
States
Full.
returned to their native
Yellow
country.
lights up.
One man said he realized his Russian culture
Ready, camera
was
3
more
with Clyde's
important than
mic.
the money he could make in the United States.
Earlier tonight, we told
Goodness.
you how the abortion controversy has heated
Ready,
up
Kim
in
to
our
1.
town
Ready,
with
camera
today's
1.
discovery of what appeared to be a pipe bomb outside the Margaret Sanger Abortion Clinic.
Q, take
The
1.
community response to that
One, ready, zoom to
tactic
Jerry.
is the subject of Jerry's commentary tonight. Jerry?
Thanks,
One
Bob.
zoom.
Now, in all
Dissolve his
fairness,
name
most anti-abortion folks don't condone
Dissolve.
the outlaw violence of a pipe bomb, real or hoax. However, in private conversations, more than a few will tell you that though the clinic bombings are wrong, the abortions that take place every day within the clinics, well, that's violence too, and that's just as bad. So we shouldn't be surprised if
How
one
about
kind of
the-
violence invites another. This argument, of course, ignores the fact that whatever you may think
How
of
about that story
abortion,
the
in
one we
America,
dropped
it
in,
is legal, and bombing buildings or people
I doubt
isn't.
seriously they're going to
So the two
save
can't be
Washington
compared.
snow. Let's use that tape.
Despite the argument of violence begetting violence, of abortion inviting bombings, the fact is most Americans view the bombings as extreme, as an irrational response to abortion. And the fact that they do may point out why the fight to have abortion declared illegal in our country has so far failed. Let me explain. As you know, we have tens of thousands of abortions each year. Well, imagine, if you will, if tens of thousands of, let's say, 5-year-olds were being executed each year. Certainly no one would be complaining if a pipe bomb were placed outside the building where those executions were taking place. Why, that person would be considered a national hero. The people committing the executions would be charged with murder, and anybody in government or elsewhere suggesting that executing 5-year-olds be legal would be strung up from the highest tree. But of course there is no such public reaction to the notion of abortion, because regardless of your personal view, you must admit most Americans
ready to dissolve
don't
his name out, ready to push it on
fetus
one.
is yet a person, or abortion is the same thing as killing a born baby.
Dissolve, push in.
And because most Americans don't believe that, that's why abortion remains legal. And those who would bomb clinics to make their points are viewed as nothing less than criminal extremists. You see, the abortion battle is over whether the fetus is human. And a bombing is a futile and sick way to demonstrate anyone's humanity.
Fade to black. And dissolve one, Mike's Q.
That's all the time we have for now. Thanks for watching.
Ready to dissolve
From all of
cards
us here at
2
News
with
5,
commentary
take care
cards.
of yourself and each other. Good night.
Night. Dissolve cards.
For a copy of Jerry Springer's commentary.
So far, 3 Marines have been arrested in that case, but given that, the Pentagon's not taking any chances.
Closer to home tonight, there's a publication in our area.
This is Steve Bailey, News 5 on the Night Beat.
Aww.
Good job. It isn't so tough to start a television station either. That kid's got a future.
That's true.
May have my job.
Up next on News 5 tonight, a strange leader in the Masters golf tournament.
Was regularly being named Best TV Anchor in Cincinnati.
So, as I thank you tonight for the Best Anchor honor, as well as for accepting me in this dual role, I also must thank my bosses. First, because they deserve it. Second, because they may be watching. And thirdly, if
Jerry enjoyed his local celebrity.
I suppose I can assume this won't be on the network.
No, I don't.
I think that's a good assumption. Oh, our apologies to the mayor.
Yeah, we should apologize to us for that. Still ahead on News 5 tonight, the cards. One person's gift to United appeal may not seem like much, but when one person gives...
Through his second career as a TV anchorman.
8 days ago, the bus drivers went on strike.
Despite no TV experience, Springer's editorials made his station #1.
As Michael Collins reports in his series on Homegrown Stars, he is someone who had a pretty good idea where he was going from the very start. Lord save us from all those high school yearbook pictures.
I know. I hope.
At Nippert Stadium, we of course will be there.
I love those rallies at the high school gym.
That's right.
But right now, you're going to see it first. We're all going to sit back and we're going to relax. We're all going to say happy birthday to Cincinnati.
Happy birthday.
That's beautiful. That is gorgeous. That was put together by J.K. Smith and Julie Smith. They worked long, hard hours on that, and you can see why.
They did, and the words and music, of course, as we said, by Peter Eden, and thank you for that.
In Brazil tonight, 2 people on board a hijacked jetliner are dead, and the hijacker is right now holding about 100 others hostage. The Brazilian jetliner was on its daily flight from the Amazon jungle to Rio de Janeiro when a gunman forced his way into the cockpit. Bad weather forced the plane to land, and it's now surrounded by state and federal police. The latest reports are that the gunman has killed the co-pilot and 1 passenger. No word yet on who the man is or why he hijacked the plane. The Seoul Olympics are being marred by protest. About 1,000 students rioted outside Korea University today, throwing firebombs at police and demanding the release of a student leader who was arrested last week. The students promised to continue rioting until the Olympics end on Sunday. Also, the controversial movie The Last Temptation of Christ is now causing international riots. Here in Paris, people against the movie about the life of Christ threw tear gas and attacked the man in the projector room. They're demanding that the movie not be shown. It is scheduled to premiere in Dayton tomorrow.
From controversy to...
Weather, which isn't controversial, just gloomy.
No, not at all. Yeah, we won't get into that. Averages.
No. Buy me a Coke and a hot dog, too?
Yeah.
Thanks, okay. Coming up, Mike Tyson bears a soul that is troubled indeed. And Ken Brew has a timely look at a sport that seems more like underwater art.
who works with women from all over to make Pleasant Ridge and the rest of the world a better place. What a good job.
Yes, another good citizen. Yeah. All week, last 2 weeks, we've been covering the Olympics.
3 weeks almost.
Yes. Ken's now going to talk about a sport. I'll be honest, I use a snorkel in a bathtub, so it's not a...
glass of water bothers you, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a sport I relate to much, but I'm going to be interested in hearing about it. Ken?
What a scary thought that is, too. I'll be back at 6 o'clock with more sports. Let's go back to Jerry and Norma.
That does sound interesting. Yeah.
It'll be nice to watch. It's like ballet in water. It's really pretty.
Yeah, but you can't breathe. They're underwater.
Oh, I'll talk to you about it. Still ahead, a piece of the White House comes home to Three Rivers. Stay with us.
Coming up next on News 5 at 6. There it is, the sight America very badly needed to see. The shuttle program is flying high once more. It was also a sight for sore hearts among these Ohio students. They witnessed the Challenger explosion and hope this success will put the past behind them.
In other news, the all-clear sign for Fernald workers who thought their lives were in danger. Plus, out of the depths of the Ohio River come some deep, dark mysteries. We'll take a look.
News, weather, sports, and how you can hear the astronauts yourself.
Next on News 5.
Good evening, America's spirit is soaring tonight, right along with the Space Shuttle Discovery. It's all because of the wondrous liftoff just over 6 hours ago that took our space program from pain to glory. Here's how that moment got everything back on track.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff! Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
We all watched as the Space Shuttle Discovery lifted off this morning, putting America finally back into space. But we had to wait a while for this to happen. The astronauts got on the spacecraft okay, but weather conditions weren't cooperating, so the shuttle sat on its launch pad waiting for the word to go. And it finally came. Discovery passed the test, and America is back in space. As you know, this is the first manned American space flight since the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded shortly after takeoff in January of 1986.
Great day.
Yeah.
Well, up next on News 5, they're solving some mysteries as we speak by dragging up some real surprises from the depths of the murky Ohio. Incidentally, tests run on game fish in the Ohio have turned up higher levels of toxic chemicals. The levels of PCBs and chloridane were up in fish tested, including catfish. Now, both chemicals can cause cancer. However, authorities say a person would have to eat tainted Ohio river fish every day for years for it to really be a health problem. Some workers at the Fernald uranium processing plant can breathe a little easier tonight. They'll make that a lot easier. Follow-up tests on 5 employees suspected of plutonium contamination have proven negative. News 5 spoke with some of the workers earlier this month. They were worried about getting cancer. Well, test results on another group of workers are not yet available.
Up next, Pat's here with our weekend weather forecast.
And in sports, it's time to go head-to-head in a heated high school football rivalry. We'll be right back. Another bit of Cincinnati history is being remembered this bicentennial year. A plaque marking the Cincinnati Master Plan of 1925 was unveiled at City Hall. That was the first zoning and development plan adopted by a major city, and it projected what the Queen City would look like all the way to the year 2100.
And speaking of the future, we just got an update on the shuttle. They launched the satellite perfectly, so everything's going just
great news.
Great with the shuttle.
And there were some delays with weather-related delays.
Reds, let's talk about something that's moving fast.
In this year of seconds, we may be second for the Cy Young Award.
Yes, I think it's over, to be real honest.
And Tommy, since this is old home week for you, I went through some archives and came up with your senior picture. Boy, take a look at that, guys.
Ooh, what's that?
That's the top ticket, $18
That is, it's worth it. And it was also worth it seeing Tom Brenneman.
It's
back when he was his sister.
Back when he was a what?
His sister.
Oh, okay.
None of us would like our high school pictures here. Let's all say that. Jerry's commentary is next. We'll be right back.
Good evening. Cincinnati has lost one of its brightest stars tonight.
Ruth Lyons died late this afternoon at the age of 81. At this point, funeral arrangements for Ruth Lyons haven't been finalized.
Tonight, many of us are remembering Ruth in our own way, maybe watching her on the 50-50 Club or just growing up with the knowledge of her good works and the children's fund. Well, tonight, Michael Collins talked to the people she worked with and people who remember how she made them laugh.
She was an absolutely remarkable woman, touched a lot of people's lives.
20 years later, it's as if she was still on the air.
Please join us for a fond look back at Ruth Lyons' tremendous career. Ruth Lyons' Portrait of a Legend will air from 7:30 to 8 o'clock Wednesday night right here on Channel 5. Ruth, of course, we will miss you. Tonight we remember a very special person, a person who continues to touch the lives of almost everyone who lives in our area.
You know, it's been almost 20 years since she retired from her daily show, yet her overwhelming personality was and is an inspiration to us.
She was a pioneer broadcaster, television talk show host before the term was even coined.
She was a network star, both nationally and on our own regional network here in the Midwest.
We're speaking, of course, of Ruth Lyons. Ruth passed away Monday afternoon, but she left us all an important legacy.
The Ruth Lyons Children's Christmas Fund has eased the fears and brought happiness to countless youngsters for 50 years.
It's this legacy that will keep Ruth alive in our hearts for years to come. Tonight, in tribute to Ruth, we repeat a program we first aired in 1986. As a time to remember, this is Ruth Lyons, Portrait of a Legend. The child in all of us cries a bit tonight because a woman who never forgot a child and helped the rest of us remember has just passed without paying to her final reward. And she hasn't earned one, no one has. I never met her, but I knew her. I never saw her, but she was everywhere. She was everywhere I saw a child who was down and out. And if not in pain, certainly bewilderment. Why am I in this hospital? Will I be okay? When will I get out? And she wasn't a doctor or a scientist, but for tens of thousands of kids for a half-century now, she was the best of medicine. A toy, a smile. Hey, hang in there, kids. Somebody loves you. Things will work out. Ruth Lyons and a Children's Christmas Fund has become perhaps our community's most lasting and visible testament to the notion that we think about more than ourselves, that we care about others, particularly God's greatest gift, the children. We well know now what she's meant to the kids, but maybe her greatest gift was what she taught us grown-ups, from the homespun simplicity of a noontime television set, that life is best and most meaningful when we take care of each other. Let's be clear here, Ruth was a television personality. And today, in an age where so much of what we see on the tube is graphic passion, her magic, certainly more lasting, was compassion. She's been off the air now for some 20 years, and yet her works and her commitment have kept her a household name. In her final years in failing health, she couldn't take in much television. She probably couldn't get the full measure of how much she still matters to us. Well, tonight, in God's hands, maybe she can see us, and maybe now she truly knows. Thanks, Ruth, for making us all better. Good morning, I'm Jerry Springer.
And I'm Toria Hamill. Coming up later today on News 5 at 5:30, it's Cha-Cha the Panda's last day in Cincinnati. Our out-of-town guest is leaving for a warmer climate. We'll take you to the send-off.
Also at 5:30, a Northern Kentucky ski resort opens under new management, and a long uphill battle to succeed. And Curtis Fuller will continue his series on so-called slasher movies. You'll find out what's being done to keep them out of the hands of our children.
These stories plus the revised weather forecast on News 5 at 5:30.
We'll see you then.
Hi, I'm News 5's Jerry Springer, and I want to show you a good idea. Each year, the American Red Cross sponsors HealthWorks, a chance for people to get their health checked. HealthWorks will be set up at various places throughout the month of April. Most tests are free, but there is a charge for some tests. Call the HealthWorks hotline for more information. The Red Cross is going places with HealthWorks, and getting your health checked is a good idea.
Let's go back to Jerry and Norma.
You know, that the winner got $15,000. For $15,000, you might want to take that up.
Well, Ray, you're living out in California now with your show and all. You play a lot of volleyball?
I play a lot of volleyball. I got my head stuck in the net and I had to quit. I got the net injury.
Is that what this is?
Yeah, that's it right there. But,
oh, the roar of the crowd.
Oh, I feel it.
Yeah, it's not just because we're here.
Right. It's not, yeah, it has nothing to do with us. And the survey said, right? And that's what they were plotting.
The survey said a man dropped his pants on the other side of the river.
And we'll have film and highlights at 11, I'm sure.
That's right.
Get it. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Pat Berry, who is on the barge. And Pat, we've got to be awfully close right now.
You had a great thought. What if for some reason this had to be called off and you were the man that had to make the announcement? Would you do it, Jerry?
It'd be the last thing you would ever say. How would you like to tell 500,000 people, oh,
go home.
We're sorry.
Yeah.
But go home. Here are some highlights of some of our favorite newscasts. Yeah. Well, we'd be alive in this town for a long time.
Yeah, we have a bird's eye view from where we are, and it was absolutely spectacular.
I've been fortunate enough to see them all, and this was the best.
Well, another book that's just hit the stores is an autobiography by Nancy Reagan. In it, the former First Lady answers some of her critics. And tonight, Michael Collins' World reviews the book with some local critics.
Whose turn is next? Michael Collins, News 5 on the Night Beat.
Not our turn.
Not our turn.
Yeah, you should read it.
It's interesting reading.
It is. Yeah, don't believe the people that just read that. I mean,
Well,
they
he just read them.
lines,
Yeah, and you take it out of context and.
Right. Otherwise, people think we're picking on.
Right, we're not.
We're not. We're not. It's a
Coming
very
up-
good book, and everybody should read it.
You done?
Yeah.
Coming up next on News 5.
This is an update from News 5.
Good evening, I'm Jerry Springer. Coming up on News 5, if you drink decaffeinated coffee because you think it's healthy for you, well, think again. Doctors are warning it could be hazardous to your health. And a rash of accidents in the U.S. Navy has been so bad that the entire Navy is shutting down for 2 days. And you could call her the Queen of Cats. Meet Catherine Hilker and her kitties in Secrets at the Zoo. It's all on News 5 tonight at 11. See you then.
Oh, neighborhood picnics might draw a crowd, but there's so little to do, even that councilman with the long hair can draw a crowd.
That is true. In the beginning, that first year they had the celebration back in 1977, it was kind of like a huge surprise. Now we kind of take it for granted, but it's hard to take this for granted.
It is absolutely beautiful, and every year there's something different. I'd like to go back to that shot we saw of you just a couple of minutes ago.
Where did they get
What was that year? 1977?
They had the Mr. America contest, and I was supposed to give a key to the city as the mayor. I took my shirt
And
off.
he took his shirt.
I'll never do that again.
You'll never do that again. Okay.
Like that.
We'll be back with less of Jerry and more of Riverfest 90 right after this.
The Northern Kentucky police officer critically wounded in a gun battle with his wife's ex-husband has new hope tonight thanks to experimental surgery. Doctors in Pennsylvania implanted an artificial lung into Sergeant Robert Palmer. Ellesmere Police Chief Bill Hyler talked with the surgeon. Officer Palmer, you'll recall, was shot on Labor Day. His 2 children, 3-year-old Casey and 2-year-old Robin, were killed by this man, John Bundy, who was himself killed in the shootout. Doctors say the next 24 hours are critical to know if the implant will save Robert Palmer's life. There's a guilty plea tonight from the man accused of touching off a massive fire at a local abortion clinic. That fire nearly destroyed the Margaret Sanger Clinic in Mount Auburn 5 years ago. Today, John Brockhoff pleaded guilty to federal charges that he poured gasoline in the basement of the building and lit it. Brockhoff could get an additional 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine. It could be 2 to 3 months before Brockhoff is back in court for sentencing. And when we return to News 5 tonight, Saddam Hussein makes a threat. In the Persian Gulf, the fear of war is still shaking up our economy tonight. Crude oil prices shot through the roof. Here's how it looks. Oil prices hit an all-time high today, $38 a barrel. At the same time, stock prices tumbled on Wall Street. The Dow Industrials were down almost 60 points, the lowest level in more than 14 months. Meanwhile, President Bush is trying to warm up the U.S. relationship with South Africa. Mr. Bush met with South African President F.W. de Klerk at the White House today. The two praised each other's efforts in the fight against apartheid. President Bush also pledged to help South Africa form a permanent democratic system. Meanwhile, the wife of South African leader Nelson Mandela is facing serious charges tonight. Winnie Mandela was charged with assault and kidnapping in the death of a teenager 2 years ago. The teen was allegedly murdered by Mrs. Mandela's bodyguards. And if you're looking for some good news today, boy, it comes in the weather. What a beautiful day, John.
It was one of those days that you write songs about, because you could just, everything was so crisp and clean. It looked like somebody just...
That's true.
No, they didn't write that song. But yeah, it was a beautiful morning, though.
It was. It was beautiful.
We're learning all sorts of stuff about the weather, other than the fact that it was cold this morning.
It was very cold this morning.
Yeah, it really was.
The success of the Reds and the 3-game winning streak of the Bengals have local sports fans on the edges of their seats. Jerry has some thoughts on how winning affects the community in his commentary tonight. Jerry?
Thanks, Norma. Maybe after a year of shame and disappointments of the Rose demise and Bengal mediocrity following a Super Bowl year and Stanley Wilson and would UC ever win again, maybe the Cincinnati sports world was due for a turnaround. And from famine to feast, could it really be Cincinnati, the city of champions? And this may well be the year. I was thinking about that while spending the weekend out in San Diego with the Reds, watching them sweep the Padres, burying the Dodgers in all the talk of choking in the process. While in the press box, word came over the ticker, Bengals trounced New England 41-7. They're 3-0. And suddenly it's not too silly to think of playoffs and pennants and a World Series and Super Bowl all in the same year. Eat your heart out, San Francisco. The torch has been passed to the middle of America. This is Cincinnati's year, the city of champions. And sure, the prospect's exciting, but Why do so many of us care and get so worked up about it all? I mean, it's just a bunch of rich kids playing a game, and yet you can't help but notice the incredible impact professional sports is having on our town. And it's more than entertainment. It's that in modern America, professional sports is about the only vehicle left to demonstrate a positive sense of community. Oh, certainly if disaster strikes, a tornado hits, or a hurricane ravages a town, everybody pulls together and there's a real feeling of shared concern, a sense of community. But other than disasters, what happens or what do we do in our daily lives that brings us all together? If Kroger has a record year in profits, do we all rally on Fountain Square? Who-day, who-day, who-day think's going to beat them cost cutters? The fact is, we're all into our own lives, our own families, our own careers. But the one thing we all share is the nationally reported success or failures of the pro teams who carry our name. We dedicate a whole section in our daily newspapers to it, as we do our nightly broadcasts. We televise the games, listen to Marty and Joe on the radio. How many of us, at least once today, saw, read, or heard something about the Reds and Bengals? No, it isn't life and death, but it is our world. It's Cincinnati. And right now, we're looking and feeling pretty good. Play ball.
The Reds are taking a day off, but they're watching probably a game very closely tonight.
I would say so.
Because the Dodgers are playing right now. The Dodgers
Houston,
win.
yeah.
But you know what? Who are we kidding? It's over.
It's over. After this weekend sweep, you know, honestly, they'd have to all leave the planet to lose.
Well, that's happened, but I don't expect it in this case.
They've left the planet?
Well, more or less,
Yeah.
figuratively. You know,
The
it's kind
Phillies
of
in
like
64.
Phillies in 64.
The Dodgers in 51.
Dodgers in 51, the year I was born.
Yeah. Oh, the
Those are
Red
two
Sox.
good
Red Sox in 78. But let's get on with other sports.
Let's do that.
That's
It'll come
over.
home.
James Francis, that's great. I mean,
What a stud this guy is.
you know, this Bengal defense is coming very
Surprise
strong.
of the year right
very
there.
strong.
Surprise
We're
of the
going
year.
to the Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Going to the Super Bowl. We're going to the World Series.
This is Cincinnati's year.
We're
I
done.
feel
It's
it. I
over
feel
with. Don't even buy the tickets. It's all over with. Don't worry about it. And that's all the time we have for now. Stay tuned for news updates every hour on the hour. Thanks for being with us.
And we're going to see you again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Good night.
Reds fans who make the trip to Pittsburgh for the playoffs will be struck by how similar the two towns are. Three Rivers Stadium, much like our own stadium, sits along the waterfront, towering over the riverboats that dot the water. It reminds me of the area around Sawyer Point Park. You look up and you see the beauty of the hills, similar to Price Hill and Mount Adams, and the warm, cozy feeling they provide.
And so all these things we have alike, the stadium and the river and the bridges and the riverboats and the rolling hills and the fountain and our newspapers, except their newspaper is wrong.
Of course, they don't know it yet. Pirate fans swear they're number one. So you can see, like us, they're confident, they've got spirit, they've got fan support. But that's where the similarity ends, because by the end of this week, only one city will go to the World Series. I'm Jerry Springer, offering condolences to Pittsburgh.
Springer began his television broadcasting career at WLWT in 1982 as a political reporter and commentator. After learning to report, he was in the anchor chair.
So over the next hour, we'll explore a variety of topics that you'll find on the ballot tomorrow.
Well, now for a change of pace. In tonight's special assignment report, we're going to visit a lone but powerful voice crying in the night. Some might call him an after-midnight caller. As we learn in Michael Collins' world, his real name is Dale Summers, but most folks know him by his handle, the Trucking Bozo.
700 WLW, good morning. I'm the Bozo. It's,
You know, the last thing he said is the most relevant if you listen to his show. He's not just a comedian and doing a lot of jokes and stuff. He is a real lobbyist. He is a lobbyist for the trucking people.
Yeah.
When they went on strike, he kind of organized them around the country. He's a hero.
He's been organizing throughout many states and doing a lot of work, and kind of fun to listen to, too. I have to admit.
I like that name, the Trucking Bozo.
I've listened to him every now and then, you know.
That could be the commentating bozo. Huh?
I would say something about maybe you already are, but then we'd get ourselves in big trouble, wouldn't we? I wouldn't say that.
More than $258 were collected for the Special Olympics. That is, the good thing about it is for a good cause.
Yes, and later on they did go to class.
I think so.
In case their parents are watching. Next on News Channel 5.
In northern Kentucky, there are some strange things going on, and some strange things are going on at the most popular country music bars in the area. The people at Bobby Mackey's are getting used to not only playing country music, but also telling ghost stories. As we learn in Michael Collins' world, they swear they're more than just stories.
Michael Collins, News Channel 5 tonight.
Ooh. And Michael was pretty shaken.
When he came back, I mean, he was, I mean, no joking around. He was kind of worried about being there.
A little spooky there.
How do you think they felt when Mike showed up?
Even worse.
Deep and 30 feet across. It's now been filled with cement. We're told 2 of the escapees were allowed to work with shovels, even though they had escaped before. Three men, a 49-year-old Tommy Mollahan, 33-year-old David Williams, and 34-year-old Fred Hamilton. Hamilton is from just up the road in Highland County, Ohio. One of the other escapees, Williams, was reported to have broken into a house 2 miles from the prison to steal a woman's purse. Now, despite the massive search efforts, all 3 men are still at large tonight. Accused multiple murderer John Fortenberry is mentally competent to stand trial. That's the word tonight from his state psychiatrist. Fortenberry is waiting to go to trial for allegedly killing Joseph Darren of Milford last year. He was arraigned on the charges here in Hamilton County in January. Fortenberry is also facing murder charges in Oregon and New Jersey and is awaiting sentencing for a murder in Alaska. The local doctor accused of drawing happy faces on the genitals of some of his patients has been cleared of misconduct charges. The accusations against Glenn Wharton were investigated by a group of Ohio surgeons. News 5's Steve Forrest reports Wharton says he's relieved and is continuing to operate on patients.
Steve Forrest, News 5.
Dr. Wharton has not seen a copy of the report clearing him. That's because Ohio law says the report cannot be made public. But News 5 has talked with a source who has seen the report, and that source confirms that Dr. Wharton has been exonerated.
Up next on News 5, the Ohio Attorney General cracks down on daycare centers.
We'll have tips for you if you're looking for the right spot for your kids. Please stay with us. Ohio Attorney General Lee Fisher is cracking down on unsafe and unlicensed child care centers across the state. 17 have already been closed this year. News 5's education reporter Eileen Houston shows us that as the end of school approaches and parents start searching for summer daycare programs, there are a few tips to keep in mind.
Eileen Houston, News 5.
If you have questions about summer daycare programs, we have a couple of numbers you can call. 4C offers information on Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky programs. Call them at 221-0033. That's what's on the board, 0033. If you're interested in the Walnut Hills Learning Center and its programs, call them at 281-7593. 281-7593. Both organizations are willing to help. And up next, Pat looks ahead in our 5-day forecast to see if the sunshine will last. We had an absolutely beautiful day today.
And a great weekend.
It was a good weekend. Let's talk about what a good weekend it was.
It was wonderful.
And I had a wonderful Mother's Day. Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson recently visited Cincinnati. He is surely a voice for the poor, but will mainstream America pay any attention? It's the subject of Jerry's commentary tonight. Jerry?
Thanks, Norma. We have to listen. I didn't say we have to agree, but we have to listen. We have to respond. We have to hear what he's saying because he's the only national politician left who talks to those who will have nothing to do with the system or the suits who run it. The president motorcades through L.A. Clinton says what he's going to do, and Perot at least suggests that he's working on an answer. But as sincere as these guys might be, to the folks on the streets and in the ghettos and on the unemployment line, living poor, real poor, to them it's all a bunch of words and promises never kept. It's just election time, so the rhetoric flows, but not the commitment, and certainly not the money. Cynicism rages in America's inner cities. I mean, just a rumor of a police shooting started a riot in Minneapolis. It turned out, of course, not to be true. A cop didn't shoot anybody. But even just the rumor was enough to ignite the short fuse of discontent that currently pervades urban America. Forget who's to blame. It's too late for that. The fact is, 3rd and 4th generation poor folk don't believe any of us anymore. Our institutions have helped rip their families apart. There's no base, no education, no economic support. The supremely gifted make it out, but most, of course, don't. And they don't believe politicians give a damn, except to get their vote and agree to keep the peace. Except for Jesse Jackson, that is. He is a bridge across troubled waters. The disenfranchised do listen to him because he really does listen to them, and he hears their cries.
And we can slough him off. We can say, oh, that's just Jesse Jackson grandstanding again, and choose to ignore him. But if we do so at our own peril. We ignore a gifted voice and a valuable conduit to a part of America we haven't let in. Simply put, if we don't find room for Jesse Jackson and the forgotten and alienated Americans he represents, if we chase these folks out of the system, what avenue is left for them to vent their anger? If the politicians won't listen, if the courts won't listen, if the media won't listen, if we keep chasing them away, we will eventually chase them onto the streets. And then suddenly we'll cry, oh, Jesse, could you help us? But then it'll be too late, even for him. Maybe we ought to listen to him now. Some of the things he says seem kind of funny, but not listening to him's a riot.
You can now call them the Red Hot Reds. They've been doing real well.
Except they're running into the Red Hot Cards.
Cards played some great baseball over the weekend. I'm going to talk about that. I'm asked for Mike Perkins, the man who got run over, his foot run over. He's not moving that fast today.
I bet not. Gosh, I remember when the winner would win at 180, 180.
Oh, yeah, I remember that all too well as well.
Yeah.
Moving fast. Thanks a lot, Greg. Coming up at 11 on News 5 tonight, News 5's Lisa Cooney shows us law enforcement in the 90s. High-tech cops are not the wave of the future. They're here now, and we'll show you their newest weapons. That's at 11 on News 5. Thanks for joining us. NBC Nightly News is up next.
And then we'll be back with updates every hour on the hour. Full report at 11. Until then, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Good night.
It's not approved by the FAA, but News 5's Laura Randall decided to give it a try anyway. It's called tandem skydiving. In tandem, two jumpers are strapped to each other, sharing one chute.
An excellent jump, and excellent photography by Ron Schmidt and everything. Wonderful.
To Laura and Ron, I've been here 10 years. That's as good as stories I've seen put together on the air. That was superb. Excellent. Not anything I want to try, but
you loved watching it.
Yes.
But
the other baseball owners who will ultimately decide Marge's fate, since there's no commissioner, won't be too tough on her, because the chances are their laundry on the issue of race is probably not much cleaner than hers. And if they try and boot her out of the game altogether, the inevitable lawsuit that will follow will open up their own personal behavior and race relations record, and that's a circus they undoubtedly want to avoid. So no, baseball won't go to the mat on this one. A slap on the wrist, a fine, and a year's suspension at most will be the price of Marge's racial insensitivity, nothing more. And the truth is, if it wasn't for the Reverend Jesse Jackson and other civil rights leaders, the penalty wouldn't even be this much. Indeed, baseball itself would prefer that no one even mention this issue. And this goes not just for the owners and the folks who run the game, but even the players and the managers. Did you notice that not one active player, white or black, showed up at the press conference or rally where the lack of minority hiring was addressed? Apparently they're all doing okay, getting by on their million-dollar contracts, so why worry about anybody else? So canned speeches aside, baseball obviously isn't taking this issue seriously. Now, I've heard the argument that baseball needn't be defensive about the race issue, that its record is good, that the likes of Barry Bonds and Cecil Fielder and Eric Davis make millions at this game. But let's not be fooled. These guys are paid that amount because white owners get rich off of them. But bringing blacks into the front office of baseball, why, that's pitifully slow, particularly considering how much blacks have contributed to this national pastime of ours. Look, our attitudes haven't changed. We'll pay blacks to perform for us, but we won't let them near the running of our businesses. And no, this isn't just a problem of baseball. I dare say the newspapers, television, and radio stations that have been lighting up on Marge and baseball's sorry record on race are just as white and just as closed off to minorities in their boardrooms. And maybe that's why this issue has touched such a raw nerve. You see, what is most offensive is not the language Marge used, but the fact that too many folks don't find anything wrong with the message. With all due respect to the Constitution, we don't have to accept a seasonal display of the Ku Klux Klan on Fountain Square. Now, in order to make that legal argument, I think we have to recognize the difference between political statements and religious ones. You see, the Klan is not a religion. It's a political organization with a political agenda. Basically, it wants an all-white America, or at least one that is racially separated. And while that organization is so hated and poisonous to the very principles of America, it has every right to apply for a permit to hold a rally on Fountain Square, just as the Republicans and Democrats do during presidential elections.
And during that time, within limits...
Take care of yourself.
His commentaries were very good.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thought, all right. Certainly the right and decent way to live.